thought the guys battled to the very end of the football game. Way too much of a hole with clearly losing the turnover battle, and penalties continue to be, a critical factor. It's something I've got to get fixed. Specifically the pre and post snap penalties that when we give away yards, or we get things stacked against us, creating third and longers for our offense, or earn first downs that aren't necessarily happening between the whistle against our defense. I thought our defense kept us in it, battling a couple big stops, and then we were able to put together some 2-minute drives despite being down a few guys up front, which is never an excuse. Expect everybody to be ready to rock and roll and step in next man up, and had a chance to still win the football game in the end because our guys compete to the very end regardless of circumstances, and just didn't find a way to get it done. Credit to them for playing a good football game, winning the turnover battle, and their formula to win is that, and they were able to do that. Injury-wise, Brian O'Neill will have an MRI tonight, looking at his knee, and then Ryan Kelly did get put in he was out with a concussion, and then Carson did get poked in the eye and was able to continue playing.
Questions? Kevin, with Brian O'Neill, how concerned, I guess, are you guys just on his knee?
I was out there when they evaluated him. Don't want to get too far ahead from a standpoint of what it might be, but it sounded like they were talking about his MCL. So that's one they'll have to evaluate. I know he was trying to do everything in his power to tape it up and see if he could go. One of the toughest guys on our team, so I know he would have absolutely tried to get back out there if he could, and we'll evaluate him and see where he's at.
How do you evaluate Carson when he is under that much pressure?
Yeah, I mean, it was you go into the game, trying to make sure you do everything in your power for, based upon what you view as the challenges going into the game. From a standpoint, I thought we tried to do everything, every which way we could try to limit T.J. Watt's effectiveness. He's a really, really unique, special player, and throughout the game we had some breakdowns, at some other areas, and just kind of took us out of the flow of being able to run the football. It took us out of the flow of being able to use our play-action pass game. I thought we did do a pretty good job early moving the football via, the ball coming out pretty quick and trying to find ways to get some catch-and-run opportunities. But as you stack some of those negative plays, you just end up in down and distances that are very conducive for them. And then eventually the score is very conducive for them, and you're trying to make sure you piece together what was the original plan, and making sure you never want to leave 90 to an open edge. And I think one of the few times we did, he got off the ball so fast they called him for a false or a offsides in the neutral zone. But then as you lose your center and then obviously B.O., it has some effect on the execution, but I don't look at it as anything more than the next man up. And we've got to consistently do some more simple things early on in the game, just from a standpoint of doing our job. And that's the execution when it's all 11, when it's all there. And you're going to have sometimes both interceptions were off of tip balls. What we've got to look at is, was the ball going to the right spot? What was the protection like? Who tipped it? Could we have gotten hands down? And then on the third and long, we're just trying to put the ball in play right there. We got to Zay a little quick on that one. Don't necessarily Carson's processing and seeing kind of the intent of the play, which had a provision in it to get the ball to Zay, just maybe not as quick as he did, and the ball ends up being thrown on the west side of the center, which was not the intent, and the ball gets tipped, and that one is an incredible play by T.J. Watt off of the tip. I think Hayward might have got the first tip, but those are two tip balls. They're still interceptions. We got the ball out one time on defense, and it looked like it bounced. JG got it off the quarterback one time, and it looked like it bounced right to one of their guys. You've got to overcome that. That's funny shaped football, and the tip balls were intercepted, and the one time we got the ball out, it was just the next down for their offense. And when that's happening, then you got to create some things. I thought the blocked field goal was big, and then obviously the defense at the end finding a way to get the stop, and then we flipped that into a touchdown and had a chance because of that. That's where you're just never going to see this team quit. They're going to play to the very end against a good team. We just didn't do enough things to overcome either, our own execution or the injuries or whatever. I don't really look at anything other than we've got to improve and continue to grow as a team.
Kevin, on the sequence at the end of the first half when Carson gets poked in the eye, did that affect his ability to kind of read things through coverage-wise at the end of the sequence?
It looked like we had TJ, on the maybe the down either right after or maybe 2 downs after, and it was his left eye, and he, he's made that throw, many times, made it, to the right against the Bengals, kind of in a similar area of the field, and just left it a little inside, tough catch, and ended up kind of all but ending our opportunity, maybe get 7 there, and what that looks like if we can do a little bit better job coming out in the third quarter. What does the game look like? So it all connects. It's all works together throughout the game, Ben, and like I said, we complemented at the end with a will to try to win the football game, overcoming all the things that, in many cases, we put ourselves in that situation.
With Ryan Kelly, are there any larger conversations that need to happen with 2 concussions this year?
Clearly, the health of our players is always the first, the beginning, the end, in the middle of that conversation, beginning, middle, end. So we'll totally defer to the doctors, and we'll defer to the protocol, and then ultimately we're going to want to make sure Ryan's in a good place. That's not anything I particularly ever want to mess around with. So we'll be smart, and at the same time, I'd much more definitely not my lane to kind of weigh in on those things until the medical staff or we get to that place. But I appreciate the question.
Kevin, on that last drive, it looked like you wanted a clock reset before the delay of game.
Well, we were dealing with the play clock. It was the unique thing about, coming to play here, and then you find out about 3 minutes before the kickoff that end zone's game clock and play clock would be turned off for the day. Trying to go as fast as we can. The coach, the quarterback kind of system kind of went out there at 15 seconds, and we just, normally that clock right in front of the quarterback is kind of registering, I got to get going, and it was, it was just precious time lost in a sequence where with the clock we're trying to get as detailed of a play off as we possibly can to account for a lot of the things we're moving the ball with from a standpoint of help on the edges, making sure we get things up front to give us a chance on the play to let our guys get downfield. And, that was a critical penalty. And then I think we might have got beat on a TE on the intentional grounding, had an opportunity maybe on that one to get a pretty significant chunk, which you're looking for at least 1 or 2 times there to try to see for sure getting field goal range. And then, we're still thinking about trying to get in field goal range and then have opportunities to either make it a shorter field goal or try to score. So that was kind of the momentum of the game. Thought the best thing to do would be onside kick it, see if we could capture it right there, continue to have it, and then no one flow and the guys could get a stop, and then it was going to be a race to try to get 3 points and get this thing into overtime.
Kevin, no, you won't use the offensive line or talk about it as an excuse, but how tough does it make it for you just as you're approaching things, knowing who they have on their side, when there is as much shuffling as there's been all year?
Yeah, you're asking guys to step in there. You're asking guys to play against some premier players for sure, and try to use the game plan as much as we can, at least as a starting point. And then from there, and we were trying to piece it together a little bit to move the ball and account for some things in the second half, which I thought Carson did a really good job kind of handling. We get the explosive to JA. You don't get in the end zone on that play, and you're trying to get a play off. And there's just sequences and parts of our offense that maybe there's an answer, but it's down the line into things, especially when you get down in there. And then just the you would have loved to save every second you possibly could, but at the same time, you've got to account for all those things that we talked about, and you're accounting for certain things where you're diving deep into the playbook a little bit to combine protection with the ability for your playmakers to make a play and try to see if we can get some 1 or 2 hitch throws out for Cars.
Last two.
What did you think of the atmosphere today? And do you think the noise played a role in the last drive?
I think the atmosphere was a great atmosphere for football. Both our fans that made the trip, the fans that were wearing purple, and I thought they had, a great showing as well. It was the energy in the building was fantastic. I think probably a combination of, the energy there on the last drive, and then, one of those negatives being, quarterback facing a clock that's off. That's not an excuse. We knew about it. But that is a unique challenge when it comes to most, if not all, NFL games. You're normally staring right down, right through the defense at that play clock to be able to speed things up and get the ball snapped. Got us in a big moment, and we've got to be ready to handle, the circumstances a little bit better.
Last one up front.
The third down efficiency was very low today. How do you plan to work on it in order to achieve consistency in the offense?
Third down efficiency?
Sí, third down
yeah,
efficiency.
I think, a big story and theme, you've heard me say the term, the early down execution, and then some of the penalties. I think we had, a false start on a third and medium, which would be in that 6 to 9 range, and that kicks you back 10 plus. I think back to some of the, early parts of our season here where we're, when we can stay efficient and when we can, get that early down execution and then lead into a third and manageable. I thought Adam Thielen had some nice third down conversions today, on some of those D&Ds. But then you start, you got to get people further down the field when you're talking about 12, 13, 14, 15. And that's when, we ended up having a turnover today trying to put the ball in play. Seeing if we can get a play started and activate Zay a little bit in the pass game, which showed up again. But yeah, it's absolutely something we've got to continue to work through. Those downs tend to be the weighty downs, tend to be the hard ones, and the most magnified when you're down some guys, because it requires some individual one-on-one, blocks at times, and you're trying to do everything you can to eliminate or at least contain some of the the very familiar names on the other side that, can affect the passer. So all well knowing there's a plan to Justin coverage-wise. There's absolutely a path moving forward for us to do exactly what you said, which is to improve on those third downs. But to me, it's as much those plays as it is the plays that precede them, and making sure we're efficient and staying on schedule to allow ourselves to get the ball out of our hand and put the ball in play to our playmakers.
Thanks, everyone. We'll have Josh Metellus and Jonathan Bernard up next.
Thanks, guys.